Yes, Father.
We haven't much time. You must listen to what I have to say.
All right, what is it?
You must accept Christ as your Savior. You must accept him now.
Forgive me, Father. Didn't I understand that you have a matter of some urgent personal business?
You must take communion. Drink the blood of Christ and eat his flesh. For only if he is within you can you defeat the son of the devil.
I see.
He's killed once. He'll kill again. He'll kill until everything that's yours is his.
Father, would you
Only
mind
through
waiting?
Christ can you fight him. Accept the Lord Jesus. Drink his blood. I've locked the door, Mr. Thorne.
Yes?
Would you send for a security guard, please?
I beg you, Mr. Thorne, listen to what I have to say.
Ambassador Thorne?
I was at the hospital, Mr. Thorne, the night your son was born. I witnessed the birth.
Sir?
I beg you.
All right. Stand by. What do you want?
To save you, Mr. Thorne, so Christ will forgive me.
What do you know about my son?
Everything.
And what is that?
I saw its mother.
You saw my wife.
I saw its mother.
You're referring to my wife.
Its mother, Mr. Thorne.
This is blackmail, then come out and say it. What is it that you're trying to say?
His mother was a...
This is the emergency podcast system. This is not a test. Movies are bombing all over the country. They are posing as movies you already know. They may already be in your theaters, your neighbor's home, or even your own. Do not panic. Specialists have been dispatched. They will help you identify these pretenders and defend you against this invasion of the remake. Please stand by for further instructions.
Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast. I'm your host, Jason Bishop, here to reaffirm your fear of children. Along with Trish Conklin, who has that fear.
Absolutely, 100%.
And Sam Stepanenko.
I ain't afraid of no children. Well, not usually, and certainly this child didn't scare me either.
I don't know, both of these kids creep me out.
I found one creepier than the other, but yeah, on the whole, yeah, children don't creep me out. Don't bother me.
We're very different people.
I may or may not have deliberately chosen this to reaffirm your fear of children.
This really helps.
I'm hoping that's the only reason you chose this movie, Jay. I really am.
It's a classic, man.
It is a classic. Yeah, it is a classic. Inexplicably a classic.
It's still one of the early examples of the evil child subgenre of horror.
Yeah.
Speaking of horror, that's what we're doing all month long. It's all the horror, hashtag all the horror on Twitter, at all the horror 18. If you want to follow all the horror of all the other podcasts that have joined us in all the horror. It's a fun month, and we are going to be doing horror all month long on this podcast and well into November as well. Mm-hmm. And we are part of 31 days of 31 podcasts dropping during those 31 days. And I think it's like 20 some odd podcasts.
It's around 20. Yeah, it's been fluctuating a little bit because we've had some personal things happening for some of them that dropped. Yeah.
But yeah, it's around 20 podcasts are involved in this from various genres and subject matter, all participating in hashtag all the horror in October. 31 days of podcasts horror.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 31 episodes minimum 31 episodes.
Yeah. And
one per day minimum.
And we're doing 5 of those. And we've got special guests coming on board on our remake episodes. And we're happy to have them. We got some really cool stuff coming up for you in those episodes. But, it's just us today, but that's okay.
It's always okay.
That is okay.
Well, I mean, you guys listen to us already anyhow, so you're not missing when we don't have guests.
That's right. So this week we are talking about The Omen, 1976, directed by Richard Donner, and the 2006 remake by John Moore. It's pretty cool to think that both of these movies premiered on June 6th of the 6th, 1976 or 2006, which is a fun way to launch a movie like this.
Especially considering it references back to the movie so nicely, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, though, but what's funny is, though, every time it's brought up, I'm like going, I'm one day off, so I'm not completely evil.
There we go.
For a birthday.
Did you watch that special feature? It's all about the revelation of the number 666.
I scanned through like some of the special features, but I wasn't too interested in some of them because I was like, I thought it would be like something that was not.
There was one dude that they interviewed who actually was born on the 6th of June, I think at the 6th hour of that day.
Whoa.
Like it was 666 in his birth date. No, it was, I think it was...
June 6, 1966?
I think it was 66, so maybe there was one that wasn't a 6, but somewhere in there was a 666, and he recounted all this shit that has happened to him.
Whoa.
And I'm like, isn't it supposed to be people around you, not you?
Right?
Yeah, that's at least that's under the premise of the movie. That's supposed to be what
Yeah.
happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and was 666 a thing before this movie? Oh.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's actually in it's actually in the Bible that the number.
Okay,
yeah.
well, I mean,
The number of the beast is,
the
yeah.
movie has what sounds like a poetic passage from the Bible that doesn't exist.
No, that's different. Yeah, that's a wow, holy stutter. That's a prophecy or a poem that the lead character knows. But yeah, in the remake they actually read the passage from the Bible.
Right.
And a lot of this stuff, when I was hearing all of it, I was like, yeah, this sounds really just along the lines of everything Nostradamus said, and he was wrong a few times. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's the number of the beast has been around for a long, long time.
Okay. And I know this isn't the first of the evil child genre, but it was certainly one of the biggest. This movie was written by David Seltzer. Both movies technically were written by David Seltzer, who wrote Bird on a Wire, Punchline, and episode 64. We covered it.
We didn't do our research again.
One day somebody will just yell out.
One day we'll get it.
One day they'll just say, hey, and I will
Beastmaster?
fall out of my chair. No, episode 64, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
And we did talk about him writing the Omen in that episode too, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he did write both of these movies as well.
Speaking of creepy kid movies,
I don't know. I like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He's an okay kid. I will take both of them over Damien.
It's the other kids.
Yeah, the other kids are terrible. Charlie's great. Yeah.
And he wrote this because he was broke. What inspired you? Desperation?
Yeah. Feeling that my life was hitting an Armageddon. My end times were here.
Yeah. The original movie stars Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, Harvey Stevens, David Warner, the voice, David Warner, Billy Whitelaw, and Patrick Troughton. Anybody know who Patrick Troughton is?
no.
He's Doctor Who, the second one. He was the second Doctor.
Wow. How many Who's have we covered?
And
A lot of them.
Martin Benson here was also Father Spoleto, and I want to mention him because he was in Goldfinger and the King of an N.I.
Yes, I recognized him.
And we'll probably talk about Gregory Peck again because he did the Cape Fear movies.
He was in both of them.
He was in both of them. Yeah. So great cast. Great cast for that one. And I got to say the 2006 has a really good cast as well.
Really good cast, actually.
As I said, directed by John Moore, who did Behind Enemy Lines.
That's a pretty good movie. Underrated movie, I think.
Flight of the Phoenix, I think, is an underrated movie as well.
I agree with you on that one.
Max Payne.
That one, yeah.
And A Good Day to Die Hard.
Oh.
Fuck you hard, John Moore. You bastard.
Yeah, it's like he got worse as a director instead of better. Isn't it supposed to go the other way around?
I should.
You know what? I think we assume that, But I've seen so many times where it hasn't. Like, you're like, the director at a certain point was being held back by certain people, but once he gets to lose his mind completely, then you see
You know
that
what?
it was always there.
Maybe I'll blame this A Good Day to Die Hard not on the director, but on the infamous Bruce Willis.
There we go.
I'm going to say he interfered with the vision that John Moore had. I'm just going to create a narrative that may or may not exist.
Oh, there's a lot of narratives where people are like, Bruce Willis, what the hell?
Bruce Willis is
a lot of directors are like,
right, Kevin? Right, Kevin Smith?
Yep. I don't think it's just Kevin either.
I don't think it is either, which is why so much of his stuff is going direct to video right now.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work with them.
Oh, yeah.
The Omen 1976 was made on $2.8 million. It grossed, like, in the U.S., about double, like 4.2 according to IMDb, but went on to do like 60 million worldwide, which was a huge number for this film. And Gregory Peck had signed on for significantly less than his normal paycheck, $250,000 I think he only signed for, and he was in a lull in his career. He was kind of at a point where he was thinking about retiring.
Yeah, he was 50, yeah.
Yeah, so he took a reduced cut in lieu, I think $250,000 plus a possible 10% of the film's gross, so wound up being his biggest paycheck in his history.
FYI, gross, always gross, never net, because they'll fuck you.
Yeah. And actually, interestingly enough, though, I did do a little bit of research. I had a little bit of time. This was the second highest grossing movie of that year, based on its international take.
Yeah, on his international take. Domestically, it was number 5.
Yeah.
Wow.
Based on worldwide gross, it was the second highest.
Well, for like an American kind of movie, it's very international,
It is.
like
You've got
Italian,
Rome.
British.
Yep.
It had that flavor that would make it more accessible to other audiences if they want to see it.
Mm-hmm. At this time, a lot of people were responding to this type of movie very well. Right, I mean, because we had The Exorcist coming out around the same time. People were just really, really into the religious-based horror.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, I mean, like 76, I mean, you're not right on the cusp of 2000, but it's close enough you're taking a good hard look at it. Yeah. Like, once you hit the 90s, people are like, it's a couple years from now, we're probably fine. But back then, it's this whole thing, right? You're just like, 25 years, it's going to happen.
And this was a big success. It spawned 3 sequels, and of course, eventually a remake. And I didn't even know, a television series as well.
Whoa.
I did read that. I didn't actually read into it, but I did remember reading that there was a TV series as well.
Okay, I just want to finish off with my stats here, and I find this kind of interesting. IMDb rates this 7.6 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes has the original movie at 86% with an audience score of 80%. So really well regarded, the original movie. And the remake, which is pretty much running the exact same script with minor changes.
Yep.
I mean, it's the same screenwriter, so it's only minor changes. The IMDb rating dropped to 5.5 out of 10 and a Rotten Tomatoes score of 27% with a more favorable score of 40% by the audience score.
That makes sense to me, actually. Because this movie, when you talk about remakes, of all the ones we've done, this one has got to be one of the most note-for-note remakes we've done.
It's very close. I mean, even most of the dialogue is the same.
Exactly. There's, aside from sort of modernizing it and making a few minor changes, it's essentially the same movie.
Yeah, they've changed, like, okay, the beheading scene of Jennings is
slightly different.
It's a little different, but I've actually made the note of, I think The Omen inspired the kind of accidentally on purpose killings of Final Destination, which in turn inspired the killings in the remake.
Yes.
I think so, yes. There's one...
Because they're more ludicrous in the remake.
They are a little bit more ludicrous in the remake. I mean, there's the one bit that they added that I actually thought worked really well was where they blow up the person who was supposed to be the ambassador to England. And then... So they set it up so that next in line is our lead character.
Yeah.
Right. So that's they tightened up the pacing a little bit, added that extra scene, but for the most part, it is the same movie. They're almost exactly the same length.
Yeah.
And then the opening scene they added too as well with the whole thing where the church is discovering that all these portents that the
they're like the first angels blew its trumpet, and then the stuff happened.
And just to make a tedious movie even more tedious, right?
Well, they're using the notion of the omens in a more literal way,
Yes.
because the original title for the original film was The Birthmark. And because of where they were shooting, they kind of wanted that changed just for the shooting location, and they switched it to the Omen just to placate some of the people at the time, and then the name stuck. And it is a better name than The Birthmark.
Yes.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you're thinking omen, portents, warnings.
Yeah, so they got a little more literal with that with the remake, and to be honest, I didn't really care for that opening. It looked glaringly bad CGI, it looked like to me.
There's some of that, and
Yeah.
what I liked, what it took away from the original by doing that is that ambiguity, right? As to what is exactly happening, and it doesn't. I mean, they've basically told you the story right at the beginning of the movie, and now you're just going, okay, well, I know what the story is going to be about now.
Well-
right? Whereas in the original, it leads you into who he is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's a great setup for the trailer, and we'll talk more about the original when we come back.
For generations, the Thorns have been a family of tremendous wealth, position, and power. The perfect marriage of Ambassador Robert Thorne and his wife Catherine was fulfilled by the birth of their son, Damien. And then, when the child was 5 years old, something terrible happened. And then it happened again. Was it an accident? Was it murder? Was it a coincidence? Or was it an omen?
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
20th Century Fox presents a film of psychological suspense about an occurrence of earth-shaking importance. Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, The Omen.
I was at the hospital, Mr. Thorne, the night your son was born. I saw its mother.
I have fears. I've fears.
What kind of fears? Its mother, Mr. Thorne.
So my wife.
Its mother.
What is it you're trying to say?
His mother was a...
This is not a human child. Make no mistake.
There are those who will die for him. There are those who will kill for him. Who is he? What does he want? Where did he come from? And can he be stopped? Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, The Omen. If this is the truth, where does it end?
All right, that was The Omen from 1976. Trish,
Yeah.
you had something you wanted to say.
Well, we were discussing with the remake, they put all the portents at the beginning, like everything that had been foretold, and like, yeah, well, I mean, like now that all these separate things have happened, then stuff's gonna get bad. I'm like, and then they show all these clips of all the horrible things that have happened in the world. I'm like, what? Now they're gonna get bad? Like all this other stuff happened, you didn't think maybe stuff was going downhill? What's wrong with you, Catholic Church? Are you idiots?
It's funny. I was of mixed feelings about that myself. I thought it was really wonderful how they kind of brought in all the sort of these modern events into the movie. But at the same time, like with you, I'm like, well, all these shitty things have been happening for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah, right?
And I think that's where you were going with it. What's the difference? It's been happening.
Is the only difference now you give a shit?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
One thing I know that I think why I like the original more is Richard Donner didn't set out to intentionally throw a bunch of supernatural shit at you. It's like, this may have been an accident. This could be the collapse of Robert Thorne's mind as it's a story of a family in crisis. Whether these things are true or not is left with some ambiguity. until Mrs. Baylock shows up with her pure evilness.
Yes, and she was so good. She was my favorite part of the original.
To me, it was mustache twirling evil. To me, like you are so much a construct of the devil that's not even funny.
I really enjoyed that though.
But that's where the one thing I think Mia Farrow's better, because she's a little bit closer to what the original script was, because that was all Billy Whitelaw bringing that to that role, and Mia Farrow brought it back to a more kindly one. So when she does something evil, it's even more shocking, and you kind of like her. Well, because I'm sorry, if you have a governess like Whitelaw was. No way I would have fucking hired you. I'm like, I don't care who sent you.
Ultimately, there's two parts. Like, I think there's both of them have their attributes, and it's sort of like Mia Farrow. You're right. When she's inserting herself into their lives, Mia Farrow, that she's playing that part, and you can see why they get taken in by her. But when it comes to Billy Whitelaw, at the end scene where she's fighting with Gregory Peck, I'm like, she felt legitimately dangerous, and that was important to me for me to see.
That's true. And the scenes where nobody was looking at her and she got that evil look on her face, I mean, when it comes to evil look, she just had it down. Like, you could tell that she was evil. Whereas Mia Farrow, you're right, it was more innocuous in that sense, where she never really looks truly evil. But I will say that when the scene where she murders Julia Stiles made me extremely uncomfortable, because seeing Mia Farrow do that, and based on her performance throughout this movie, was really uncomfortable.
Yeah,
which works really well.
Looking at each other, talking with their minds.
Yeah.
With this whole time, and the whole time I kept looking at that nurse, I'm like going, dumb nurse, you don't just let somebody who's A, not a relative, and B, just fucking shows up in the middle of the night into this patient's room where there's a guard outside. You should be fucking fired. Once this woman died, that should be the last job you have.
Yeah, when Liev Schreiber runs her over, like, that was actually something cut from the original script. Yeah. That was actually in the original script that was cut because Richard Donner thought it was a bit excessive. I mean, believe it or not, in 1976, they still had trouble, even with the no blood policy in this movie. It's still gory, and they had trouble not getting an X rating, let alone an R.
Yeah, and mostly just because of subject matter, I suspect.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right? Because as soon as you start at it talking about,
if this movie had been called The Antichrist, it probably would have got heavily chopped.
Interestingly enough, they did make a movie called The Antichrist that I have not seen, nor will I don't think I will see it. I've heard really horrible things about it, but it's Willem Dafoe.
It's just not The Antichrist. It's just called Antichrist. It's Lars von Trier, so...
Yeah, you got to be going... Lars throws a lot of excessiveness at you, regardless of what the subject matter is.
It's... I never want to revisit it.
Well, Sam, you might not want to either. There's a genital... mutilation that will haunt you for the rest of your days.
I've never seen it because, I mean, we're off topic, but Lars von Trier, I've tried... And I appreciate that you are a well-revered director, but you're fucking weird. And,
he is.
And I find it really hard to enjoy your movies.
I kind of had to watch this one. It wasn't my choice to watch it. But not happy about it.
Yeah. I only know things about Antichrist and his other movies. I don't have any desire to watch any of them.
No.
I've tried, and I like weird. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, but, I'm all down for weird.
Yeah, but he is weird in a very uncomfortable, trying to shock you kind of way that I don't really enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Like, it's weird. It's sort of like somebody who says, like, oh, I'm looking at, like, the darkest parts of the human condition. No, it seems like you're just, like, pornographically filming stuff you want to see that's grotesque. Like, I'm getting that feeling every once in a while. That's what he's doing.
I think there is some mental issues there, but allegedly.
Allegedly. This is just an opinion. I'm not even saying the truth. I'm like, this is just the feeling I get when I look at some of this. He wanted to see that done to another human being.
Better be a filmmaker than a
serial killer.
A serial killer, true.
So if you're going to get it out in a creative way rather than a real way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, back to Rat.
Back to Rat.
Can we talk about Gregory Peck for just a second before I forget?
Yes.
I love Gregory Peck, but he was too old. I didn't buy it.
And he does feel too old for this part.
Yeah. I mean, when we talked about Cary Grant in the...
Oh, sure.
But he's good in the part.
He's good in the part, and it worked really well. But in this one, I just didn't feel that Gregory Peck worked as well in this role. I mean, he was 50, and he felt 50, which felt wrong for such a young family. Liev Schreiber is a little bit younger, and I actually think Liev's performance was stronger than Gregory Peck's.
Well, it made sense when they kind of wrote that in there as part of their story as to why he's so young. Because, Gregory Peck is the ambassador, whereas this guy has kind of inherited the role. I mean, they could have given it to somebody else, but he was already the deputy to the ambassador. And when the ambassador was killed early in the movie, he's given that on faith of the president. So he has a relationship to the president. And don't get me wrong, this movie has very political undertones.
Yes, it does. This one is much more political than the original.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good solution to the script because, as you're saying, he's 50. It makes sense an ambassador would be 50. But it doesn't make sense that he's having his first child with his wife. So you have to figure out how to make him young enough so that makes sense, but old enough that he could have that post.
And I do like the way they did it, right?
Yeah, but the story you're not seeing is the sequel that never got made was that he did have a previous family, and he's not talking about it because it would have been a huge thing in politics in the 1976, and that man grew up to be Donald Trump. Oh wait,
Yes.
I'm not sure. I got my history's got mixed up there.
He did have a family with some illegal Scottish woman who was not supposed to be in the U.S. Anyways.
I don't know what... It's truth and fiction. It's so weird.
I know. Well, this is when I was watching this movie, now when I watch it, it makes me just sad. Because it's sort of like, I'm like, yeah, that's what it would happen. Like some kid gets introduced into a political family, gets all the political connections, and just is the Antichrist.
Yeah, and do you feel that adding that political bent to the remake added or removed from it? Because when they were trying to fit all those pieces in, I found that it was kind of clumsy sometimes.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like it adds a whole lot until that final scene where you realize the puzzle pieces have been put there so this kid can be put in that perfect position to get to the top of the ladder and become the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
Now, I actually watched a movie last year for 31 Days of Horror, and we're doing it again, guys. That was called Hellfire. It was one of the first ones I watched, and it was kind of what Damien would have been when he hit his mid-20s before he hit the political career. So it was a weird stepping stone, but there was another movie and that wouldn't exist without this.
Without this, yeah.
And you could say that about a lot of movies.
You can, for sure. Right?
Well, there's a movie coming out that I'm completely looking forward to. It's Terry Pratchett's Good Omens.
It's hitting Amazon Prime. I think it's a series, an event series.
I think so.
Could be a movie, but the teasers went up this week.
But reading the book, I remember this. I'm like, what a brilliant concept! The process of the book is that the Antichrist is on Earth, and good and evil are fighting over his soul. Problem is, they've been concentrating on the wrong child this entire time. It's been somewhere else, and they have a very short period of time to find him.
Oh yeah, Good Omens is great.
It was a great book. I've read that one a few times.
Yeah,
I kind of wish that there was a little bit more good and evil battle happening in this movie. Like when I saw the maid, I'm like going, "Oh, I want the maid and the nanny to have a fight."
Yeah, yeah, that would have been hilarious. Yeah, I mean, and that book's written by two of my favorite writers. It's written by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. So, you can't go wrong there.
Yeah, and Neil Gaiman's stuff's getting made all over the place right now, with American Gods doing well on TV as well. Are you guys familiar with the Omen curse behind the filming of the original film?
I'm familiar with the Exorcist curse.
Yeah, there was one with this. I read about it, but I didn't read the details. Again, I was tight on time, so my research was weak this week.
Okay, I'm going to try to abbreviate what's here on IMDb. Gregory Peck and screenwriter David Seltzer took separate airplanes to the UK.
Yes.
They're about 8 hours apart. Both were struck by lightning. While the producer, Harvey Bernhard, was in Rome, the lightning just missed him. The Rottweilers hired for the film attacked its trainer. The hotel which Richard Donner was staying got bombed by the IRA.
Whoa.
He was also struck by a car. Gregory Peck was going to be on a chartered flight and then canceled at the last minute. It was supposed to go to Israel and was subsequently booked by Japanese businessmen. It crashed, killing all on board.
Whoa.
On day one of the shoot, several principal members of the crew survived a head-on car crash, and the jinx persisted well into post-production when special effects artist John Richardson was injured and his girlfriend beheaded in an accident on the set of A Bridge Too Far. There's also a beheading in this movie. And ironically, David Warner kept his head until his divorce, and then he lost custody to his ex-wife.
Oh, no.
That's hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. It's funny because as you're talking about this curse, I mean, yes, there were a lot of events that occurred around them that threatened them. But in the end, the only death that happened after the movie was done shooting on another set.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? So is it a curse?
There's a lot of near misses, like, we're warning you.
Yes.
Be careful here. You're treading on thin ice.
Yeah.
It was like, this we'll get you if you go a little too far. This better not be like pro Satanism.
It's weird. Sometimes it depends on how much you can like put as a cautionary, like, if something is a curse, how much happens. Because, like, I don't know, technically you could say the Lifetime movie Liz and Dick was cursed because Lindsay Lohan got into an accident and all this other stuff happened.
Yeah, and I mean, shit happens. And this was a case of a lot of shit happening on one movie that's about Satanism. Yeah. So things kind of come full circle and people create scenarios that may or may not exist.
Yeah, like it's sort of, you want to believe that
there's definitely coincidences that are
that are hard to ignore, for sure.
The two lightning strikes, that was always one that I was like, three different planes. Three.
Oh, yeah, two planes and a ground strike.
The planes
and
were the ones I noticed.
The same crew, like, Jesus.
Yeah, and not just like members of the crew, but prominent members of the crew too.
Yeah, like how many people know somebody who's been struck by lightning or come close to being struck by lightning?
I had a friend.
Yeah, let alone like within that circle, like you know, maybe one person knows somebody who knows somebody, like you just said, but to have like this many in where it's 1 degree of separation, that's a whole other ballgame.
Or even know somebody who's been on a plane.
Playing the odds.
Like been flying in a plane and then it's been struck. Because I don't know of anybody, and I haven't not even a friend of a friend for that one.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's very true.
Okay, well, I just wanted to throw those little creepy facts at you.
It is creepy, yes.
It's nice and creepy for Halloween.
Out of all the facts I want to do this one. They're not facts per se about the movie, but they're certainly interesting nonetheless.
They're the ghost story part of our podcast. Ooh.
Yeah. I didn't get into the casting of the 2006 Liev Schreiber, Julia Stiles, David Thewlis, one of my favorites, a bunch of Italians who I can't pronounce, and I'm not going to try, and Pete Postlewaite, who I do believe was going through cancer at the time, which is ironic because Father Brennan's character was as well.
Yeah.
Mia Farrow, we've already mentioned as Mrs. Baylock, and cameo appearance by Michael Gambon as Bugenhagen, and not the only cameo in this, because the original Damian Harvey Stevens was also in the film as one of the paparazzi photographers.
Yeah. Ooh. His only other film role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then there was... there was another person I recognized as one of the photographers. She actually got a quick line, and she's gone on to some good things as well. But I'm blanking on the name right now.
I had to say, of the two children, the child in the original, I don't know. I felt he was a better Damien because it seemed for much of the time he was at least trying to play up that he was trying to fake a relationship with his mother, whereas the other kid, I'm like going... He's just weird all the time. Like, I would be scared of that kid, even if I gave birth to it.
Yeah, and I think they were deliberately directing him to make him look creepy and feel weird and awkward and
but that takes away.
Unsettling. Yeah, and that's just it. Like, Richard Donner's going for ambiguity.
Well, and he did such a great job because he gave the child had very few lines, right, which made him very unsettling.
Well, it's because he was a little shit on set.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but
well, he was Damien.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, but I love as far as acting goes, I thought he was a better actor too, because he didn't have very much dialogue, but his facial expressions when he gave you that creepy smile, it was a creepy fucking smile.
Well, that's that iconic bit at the end where he turns an over-shoulder camera. By that point, Richard Donner learned how to direct him, so he's like, "Don't you smile, you little shit! Don't you dare laugh!" And of course, he does the opposite.
Yeah.
And that's where you get that little smile.
Yeah, and he does it a few times in the movie. But there's one thing this reminded me that before I forget again is there's a scene that they changed in the remake that I really thought was a good change. Is in the original when they lose Damien in the park, you're like, what the fuck? You guys are walking ahead of your 4-year-old child and you're not paying attention. That's just bad fucking parenting.
Yeah.
Right. In the remake, they at least make sure that she's distracted. There's a distraction that takes her attention off him. And
it's not two incompetent parents. It's just one that's quickly distracted.
But see, I was the whole thing like, I don't know.
And the
when
kid's playing a trick on it.
To add to it. That's also it,
It's weird. I like the original one and I'll tell you why. Because I remember growing up as a little kid, there were times where my parents were walking hand and they weren't paying attention to me. That's very 70s parenting, where they're like, we're just going to assume he's okay. Because honestly, there's only so much we can do to keep him alive. So they just keep, and at the end, it sort of seemed like they were a couple. Whereas in some instances in the remake, it seems like Julia Stiles and Liev Schreiber are like strangers.
There is no chemistry between
none
those.
whatsoever.
These two, Gregory Peck and Lee Remick, there's a large age gap.
But there's chemistry.
Yeah. Yes, I buy them as a couple.
Yeah,
I really
did too. I'm right with you there. I thought they were believable as a couple. No point did I feel like there was any kind of chemistry between those Liev Schreiber, and it's not.
And they're both
Liev.
great actors,
and because I think when Liev's on his own, he's fine. Schreiber's great on his own, and then there's Julia Stiles. I'm like, she's just miscast for this movie. Like,
I have to agree with you. Yeah,
except for her death scene, I thought was decent. And there's there's some spots in the hospital they're all right.
And the scene where she falls off the balcony.
Otherwise, I'm like, oh man, like when she works, she really works, and when she doesn't, she just feels she just sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
in the movie.
But see,
that's with this one.
It seems to me she was really leaning into like the part of the character that just was uncertain and didn't want children. It was so that beginning part where she was really excited to have a child didn't fit. Like it seemed like the latter parts where she was like, I don't want to have another child. I'm not a good mother. I don't want any of this. I could totally buy that from her. But you can't do that throughout the whole film.
No, I mean, you've got 5 years of family history before you get to that point where things start going into crisis mode for her with her kid, and things are really starting to go bad. I mean, okay, nannies are committing suicide. Something's wrong.
Yes. And she's not bad all the time. You're like you said. There's moments where she's really good. Where they do the line swap, where she's the one who recognizes that Damien's never sick. I thought that was a great change. I thought it worked really well for her character because of the way she played her. But yeah, for the first half of the movie, she doesn't feel like she's really there, and you do feel like the relationship's broken, but not because you're supposed to, but because of that lack of chemistry between her and Liev Schreiber. When she's on her own, she's actually quite good. Again, it's just when her and Liev are together, where it just all falls flat, except for that one scene where they do the line swap. It works really well, and I'm not sure why that was. It doesn't. Maybe they didn't like each other really.
I don't know. Like when it's antagonistic, sort of slightly antagonistic, like that line swap thing, it does work because it seems like there's something happening. But when they're trying to be like, you're the love of my life, yay, it's not getting anywhere. Like, I'm not feeling that.
Yeah, because, she dies and... And
he goes real.
Yeah. At least with Gregory Peck, I felt like he was in actual trauma over that. And even Liev was like, I didn't like the bitch anyway.
Yeah. What bothered me so much, and this is, there's another thing.
Terrible. Just terrible
movies.
chemistry.
Just really irritating. Especially with the Julia Stiles when she brings it up to him. This is his wife. But the camera guy who he just met points out a few things to him, and he'll go on a trip anywhere.
Yeah, let's go on a trip, buddy.
Let's abandon my wife who's in the hospital after a traumatic fall.
Yeah.
My wife who told me what was up.
Yeah.
But you, who I don't fucking know
thinks
at all,
my
I'll
son
believe
is trying-
everything about.
Yeah, who thinks her son is trying to kill her.
Yeah.
It happens.
Let's go to Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the photographer did provide empirical evidence. He showed the photographs directly correlating to two confirmed deaths. Right? And I think that was supposed to be the selling factor. And I like the way they did that. It was an interesting device. But you're right. It still doesn't make sense, really.
Yeah. You know, God love David Thewlis. He's great even in shitty movies.
Right?
Yes.
And I was looking, if you compare his face and David Warner's face, it's the best casting
Oh, they
ever.
were great casting there, and especially David Warner in 76. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this movie has a great cast because even though we're talking about Julie Stiles' performance, she's not a bad actress.
No.
She's good. I think you hit the nail on the head. There's just no chemistry between her and Liev Schreiber. And Liev delivers a really great performance all the way through it. The only performance that I found flat, and I'm sorry to say this, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for it, but Michael Gambon was awful. I just did not enjoy him.
I thought he was in a different movie.
Yes,
he didn't.
I didn't think he was awful per se, but it did feel like he was in a completely different movie.
He felt fucking insane.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, well, no wonder that scene in both movies I don't like in general because just prior to that, he's decided his son must die. His wife just died, and he's like, Damien's got to die too.
Yeah.
And like the very next scene, he's like, I can't kill a kid. What the hell? No.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you people?
Other flaws there, but
but that's in both movies.
Yeah,
and
it is.
It bugs me in both movies.
They could have fixed it quite easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the original, at least the that character felt like a professor of the occult and demonology versus Michael Gambon, who was just came across as Looney Tunes, and it didn't add the gravitas to that scene when he's explaining how it works and why he has to insert the knives in a certain way. You're like, you're nuts. I'm not buying this.
He seems like a conspiracy theorist as opposed to the other guy who's like, this is it. But what bothered me in both movies is he's like, this first knife is the most important. I'm like going, okay, is there a mark on that knife so I can tell which knife it is?
They fixed that in the remake because there's a word on it.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that part.
There is a word. They show a close up of the knife and it has something in it written on it in Latin.
But do they have all the order of the other knives? Because that also I didn't know what you're supposed to do with those.
Yeah, and they were set in order
supposed to be. But when they're all inserted, kind of makes a cross.
Yeah, and they were in the remake again. They show this, like they fixed that problem. Is they show the knives in, like that's the center knife, and then you work your way out.
Man, killing the Antichrist is a process.
It really
is.
Jesus.
And speaking of the process, in both movies, I like the fact that he outwits the dog and manages to get the dog out.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like the header he takes in the second one.
Yeah,
that dog just poof.
Yep. Well, if you're going to get rid of a hound of hell, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
But in both movies, I'm like, okay, you know this is an evil dog, and you know that there's evil happening, and you're pretty sure. And he said to you, Mrs. Blaylock will like make sure that never happens. You go straight to your kid just to check. No, you take out Mrs. Blaylock first if you're smart.
Yes, yeah, but then you don't get that fight, the climactic fight at the end.
Yeah. I'm just saying from real life.
Thank you for bringing up the dog because I noticed something in the remake that didn't make sense to me. Okay, right before the nanny commits suicide and the dog that grabs her attention and puts the thought into her head to kill herself. Why in the remake did they make that dog different than the dog they brought into the house?
That's what I wondered.
Because it's a completely different breed.
Yeah, I don't know why.
And I'm looking at it going while we're watching it, and Val even mentioned. She says, "Well, that's a nicer looking dog."
It's like a German Shepherd type deal.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't look as menacing as the Rottweiler. And I'm like, that's fine. I kind of actually like that idea. But then they went to the Rottweiler as the dog that they found and brought into the house.
I don't know why they did. I noticed that too, and I'm like, but I just thought I was seeing it wrong in the dark. But yeah, you're right. I don't know. Maybe they just didn't think anybody would notice. But we did.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe the original dog that they were working with in that scene, depending on when they shot it, it wasn't available, or maybe it was just good at that one thing.
Yeah.
Which is possible. Maybe they borrowed a dog for that scene they were shooting later.
Well, I don't think like the dog took a header into that cupboard door or that floorboard or whatever it was. I mean, if that was CGI, it looked really good for that movie, and especially in 2006, it looked really good. So if that's the case, and they were working well ahead of schedule, and somebody realized, oh wait, well we put a German Shepherd in here, but we just CGI'd a Rottweiler.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Who knows? But yeah, it was a really something that really glaringly stuck out to me.
But see, if that's the point. If that's the case, you know what's easier to do? Go back, do that shot, because there's nothing else in that shot but that dog. You do it with a Rottweiler. Put that footage in.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. It was an easy fix.
Simple.
Yeah, but it just didn't make sense to me. That they introduced this dog and then you never see it again.
Yeah. Well, I think it's time to run the trailer for the 2006, and when we come back, I want to go to the zoo.
Damien! Look at me, Damien!
It's all for you.
What's wrong, sweetie? It's just a church, that's all.
She's sick.
As cold as ice. What's the matter? Those other kids didn't want to play with you?
They're afraid. Hello, Damien. I'm here to protect you.
There's something about Damien.
I was at the hospital the night your son was born.
What do you know about my son?
Everything.
He bears a birthmark, a sequence of sixes. From the eternal sea he rises, creating armies on either shore, turning man against his brother, till man exists no more. Your son, the son of the devil.
Okay, so have any of you guys gone to the zoo and been able to drive through a bunch of baboons? Because I don't think I have. Although now that I think about it, maybe I did do some lions as a kid. Yeah, and we definitely have like the buffalo paddock here that you could drive if it's still open.
There was one in the Okanagan. I can't remember what it was called now. I think the Peachland Game Farm or something like that. But yeah, it had some areas that you could drive through, but mostly it was like a big open air zoo.
Huh.
Yeah, there's a few safari parks I remember hearing about and seeing, and there's a few things you could look at. Like, okay, there's actually, it reminds me of a GIF. The GIF of there's people who've got the window opening and they wave at the bear and the bear waves back and falls over. That's like a safari park.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, mostly those are now only pretty much in Africa in their protected parks.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if maybe there was a thing in the 70s in Europe, which would make sense.
And I mean, that's dangerous because you don't generally want to have females around baboons, especially if they're ovulating.
Mm-hmm.
Just the smell of blood will make them feral. The way they shot that scene,
but I can still go to the zoo
for the attack. Yeah, of course. For the attack in the original film is they weren't doing anything. The baboons were just sitting there like until they took like the leader of, what do they call a bunch of baboons? The pack, pride, I don't know.
Oh, guys, there's a special name and I can't remember it.
Yeah.
It's a weird one, but it's one I enjoyed.
Okay, well, a whole lot of baboons. We'll call them a bob of baboons. And they took the leader away. And then they went nuts. And then they started attacking the car. And that reaction that Lee Remick has is legit.
Yes, it should be.
It looked terrifying. Like, it was actually really well done because it did look terrifying.
Now, the zoo that they have in the remake, at least it's a little more proper, but when this big silverback starts hitting the glass, that's actually pretty scary too. I'm like, oh, wow. But then they cut away so quickly. Like, well, what happened? You just had a bad day? Like, it just stops.
Right.
And that was frustrating. I'm like, wait, whoa. Like, we didn't see her escape, and she was just standing there as people were running. So what happened?
Yeah,
and we do have some nightmare scenes. It's like, did this even happen? Was this in her head?
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, I really liked the nightmare scenes, by the way.
Yes.
I thought they were added some nice visuals to the movie. It's one of the flaws of the remake is there's a few spots there where they kind of cut away and they don't explain things very well. like how they got away. At least in the original, they show her driving away, escaping from the baboons, right?
Yeah.
Well, I like the additional scene where he's looking at the giraffes, and
Yes.
then they freak and leave. I like that bit.
Yeah, and they replaced that with the scared monkeys, but it doesn't work as well.
No.
It doesn't work anywhere near as well. But you said something there that brought me back makes me want to come back to the nanny scene where the first scene where you really know that something's wrong in the original, where the nanny sees the dog and clearly the dog is passing on a message to her, and then she goes and hangs herself. It's all for you, Damien, and then hangs herself. The one thing I noticed about this scene is because these correlate is in the first scene, especially in the remake, is she hangs herself and then everybody panics and runs away. That doesn't make sense.
No, that doesn't to me either.
Right.
It's like, well, what are you running from?
Exactly, and that was
protecting your children and maybe hiding them from seeing it is if you're running towards your children to keep them from looking at what just happened. That's one thing that makes sense.
But
to me.
fleeing doesn't.
Yeah, no,
it does not.
No.
But it does make sense in that other scene.
It's
with
like
the gorillas where there's genuine terror happening.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, when you're a kid, it's like your parents are going, "Don't poke that dead bird." Like that's kind of what that is. It's just bigger. It's like, okay, all right, somebody call an ambulance.
Like when you're about 5, you've watched this happen, and I mean, like, I think about 5, you have a fuzzy idea about death. You probably haven't had the full conversation with your parents.
Yeah.
So it's not as, it's frightening to your parents. Not
it
that
is.
frightening
And
to you.
Liev Schreiber's or Robert's character was the only one who had a natural reaction in that scene where he runs to Damien to protect him from seeing any more than what he's already seen. And then you get that great shot of Damien looking over his shoulder, looking somewhat pleased with what happened. Right. So. Yeah, that was one of the things, and it's a movie trope that we see fairly often: is people panicking and running away when it's not appropriate for the scene.
Damien was waving to the dog.
Yeah.
Well, and then the follow up of that in both movies, where here's the argument that this woman is giving them. They're like, well, some of the younger nannies, they're far from home, they get a little homesick, or they have boy trouble, so that's when you go to the top of a building, put a noose around your neck, and say, "It's all for you, Damien." Like that makes no fucking sense. Like that irritated me both times. I'm like, that's not how suicide works, and if the parents believe you, they're stupid.
Yeah, no, that was a possession sacrifice I think we're led to believe.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the fact that lie gets through, that always bothered me.
Well, it's not even a lie. It's just a very poorly interpreted reason for why this would have happened.
No, this is what this woman is telling them. They're like, "Oh, this is just what happens."
I guess she is lying because if she's an agent, you're right. It is absolutely.
I like
right.
the comment going, "Oh, how's the new governess working out?"
Yeah,
pretty good, but I chose the last one, so look how that went.
Yeah,
I did appreciate that.
I did appreciate that note.
Yes, yeah. There's.
I would have been great if, like, at that party, and she just committed suicide, and Tom, his buddy, looks over at Robert and goes, "Great party."
Yeah.
Or what would happen is after she starts to suspect Mrs. Blaylock, she's like, "Okay, you know how I didn't think I had good taste when I picked the first nanny? Maybe let's discuss, I don't like this new nanny."
That showed up and nobody booked her.
Exactly. And she had a fucking attitude.
Yeah, like there's no that first nanny in the first movie, like her, like the original Miss Baylock. There's no way I would have hired her.
No.
Like, I don't give a shit who sent you over here. We didn't hire you.
And then
you got attitude right out of the gate. Whereas Mia Farrow, like, you're sweet, you kind of, and Damien seems like you. Like, everything on paper looks great.
Yes,
with her.
Yeah, it's true. And there's especially the scene where they're getting ready to go to that wedding, and where Miss Blaylock out and out argues with Lee Remick in the original, saying that no, I don't think she's saying I don't think it's appropriate for him to go to church. He's not going to understand what's going on. Blah 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 blah. At least in the remake, they fixed that by saying, well, he's not feeling well, and this is a long ceremony. Maybe at least she rationalized it without being argumentative.
Yeah.
Towards.
Oh, there's so many times I would have fired her ass.
Oh yeah, and then with the whole dog thing, bringing the dog into the house before, getting permission from the household,
Yep.
and then arguing.
In both instances, that would be her last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was frustrated with Catherine as well. She's off watering the plants, and this is the infamous scene where she falls over the banister and gets injured. Where the fuck are the rest of the people that are, like...
It's a huge house.
It's a huge house. There's clearly other staff here that do this sort of thing, why are you doing this?
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, unless if they'd established earlier that she was a gardener or a horticulturist, or this was her hobby, was plants, then maybe I would have bought that. But I wasn't buying that for a second because I'm like, there's clearly staff around and they hadn't left yet.
Yep.
You know, because that was
like a
And she's standing
30-room
on a
house.
table.
She can't
in
do
both
it.
movies. She's standing on a table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've clearly been up there for a while. You must have done this a million times, or somebody's done this a million times, and I'm doubt they're moving furniture around.
Well, and the other thing that bothers me about it is how long does it take to water a fucking plant? Because she's up there for a long damn time.
Yeah.
A long damn time.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not big plants either.
No, and if you're going to be there for a while, that's really just, if you have a plant you need to do a lot of work on,
Actually,
you take it down,
Julia
put it on a
Stiles
table and
actually
do it.
looked like she actually knew what she was doing because she was taking out the dead leaves and hucking them over.
Yeah, that's true.
Making the staff pick it up, I guess. Like, that's kind of bitchy.
But if you're going to do work on a plant, you take it off the hook, put it on a table, do
because
it there.
that's the safe way to do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was funny, because this is a Val comment. She's like, "What a stupid place for a plant."
Yes.
Because it's true. Why would you hang a plant there, especially in a house like that? Like, it just doesn't make sense. That's kind of an outdoor thing. You wouldn't hang a plant over a railing like that. It ruins your view down to the
assumed it was
bottom.
because there's I thought there was a skylight at the top of that hall, or I could have been wrong. Maybe it's just the way it was lit.
But you wouldn't hang a plant obstructing your view over a balcony like that or over a railing like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe people have just a weird sense of style.
Maybe, but it just set up the scene that much better. Right, is the only reason it was there. Let's face it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They could have done something different, but they're like, no, a plant makes the most sense. No.
Yeah.
It's just that whole scene.
And that's one of those things I'm like, well, why didn't you guys change that? Like, if you're going to make a remake, have a little bit of fun with this, and maybe that worked in '76, but it just seems even more ludicrous.
It feels even more clumsy in the remake.
Yeah.
Or have something that would be out of the ordinary that would cause her to get up and be like, just to try and fix it on her, something that would bother her.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be just ordinarily there.
I didn't like that it felt more intentional too. Like, I felt like it was this high-strung kid that was just cycling around that just got unleashed.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like in the first one. It's just like, I'm going crazy on my tricycle. Woo!
Yeah, and
the other one,
very deliberate.
It felt very deliberate on his, whatever those little
scooter
things are.
But the other thing, the other reason I think they hung the plant where they did, going back to it, sorry guys, but is so they could have her grab onto that, because in the original, her being able to grab the railings as she went over didn't really make sense. Because the way she'd fallen over it, she would have just gone over. She wouldn't have been able to.
That
grab
was
the railing.
because of the way they shot that. Originally, Lee Remick was going to take the fall, and then chickened out.
Yeah.
So it was just the way they shot it was kind of staging.
Yeah.
So it was like two different sets essentially to make it look like she might have fallen but hadn't. Whereas Julia Stiles did it. She actually did the fall. I mean, it was deliberately safety floor and whatnot, but she took that fall.
That impact in the remake looks painful.
Yes.
It was so well done.
I was horrified by that. I was like,
Yeah,
I'm sure there was the shot was in stages because you got that side shot of her falling. It looks like a lot further in the second one.
It does. Well, it is. It's 2 floors up instead of 1.
Yeah.
Right. So it is farther than it was in the original, regardless. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, but I think we did see this in the theater together.
I still don't remember. Like, part of me does. Like, there's elements that I seem to remember going to this movie, and then the rest of it was wiped out.
See, and I know I saw it in the theater, and I know
think we did, and I don't think we were happy.
No, but I don't think
There
we
you go.
paid for it either. I think we were.
No.
That's
Oftentimes,
right.
especially then, I was getting screeners to almost everything that we saw.
Because this was one of those ones where, like, if it hadn't been free, I wouldn't have gone.
Yeah, no. I was kind of the same way. Like, I love horror movies, but one of the subgenres I don't care for are the creepy children genre. It's just not something I'm gonna go out of my way to watch.
Well, and for me, it's just simply that. Well, I didn't really enjoy the first one enough to, like, I don't revere it the way so many people seem to. So, and certainly, I didn't even I haven't liked really any of the movies in the series, to be honest.
Actually, I did go out of my way last year because Little Evil was on Netflix, and I really enjoyed Little Evil. So.
But,
when played for comedy, an evil child is great.
Yeah,
that's.
I was down for Little Evil.
Yeah, but there's definitely, like I said, no way that I would have gone otherwise to see this in the theater.
Yeah. But you know what? You know, in hindsight, like it's been a couple of days now since I've watched it, and I think I enjoyed them. Like overall, they do feel a bit long, but overall, I think I really enjoyed both films.
Oh, I like
I certainly, if I saw it before, I've certainly changed my mind on the remake a little bit.
Well,
not everything, like it's an inferior movie, but not by a huge stretch either.
No, it's for as far as remakes go, it's a pretty comparable movie, and I don't hate these movies, not by any stretch of the imagination, but they're just not my thing.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'll go out of my way to watch them anytime soon after this watch. But
I think if you're in the mood for them, like if you're looking for something like very gothic and very kind of culturally rich, it's
burn
great
style that was kind of prevalent in the 70s and in ghost movies these days as well. That slow burn, that slow build. When something happens, it should be shocking. Like it doesn't actually feel as shocking in the remake as it does in the first one, because when somebody dies, it does feel like a horrible accident in a lot of ways. Where you get to the remake and it feels like this Final Destination chain of events. It's like, oh god, like when that truck broke loose and then the painted glass took off Warner's head, like, okay, that was pretty cool. And then it just like there was still a lot of sets, but at least there's a sequence that makes sense. And then it was this weird thing that was hooked and then came unhooked and then swung down.
But it came unhooked because somebody was shingling up top and the one guy moved his foot, then it hit the hammer, then the hammer came down, then it hit the eave
which
just right.
Very
then
Final Destination.
And then
the
it went around the right angle. If it had gone it didn't really matter. If it had gone the other way, he might have still been bent over. It would have been fine. But it went the right way. It is Final Destination. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
that in the long run was kind of irritating because it just comes off cheesy to me.
Yeah.
For what they were trying to do, and it really undermines the family in crisis part of the story, and adding a more clearly supernatural elements going on, where maybe it's not Damien per se, but Satan itself in some sort of
manipulating events to achieve a goal.
Yeah.
And
to protect Damien.
Exactly. There's a lot of that happening in that remake. It's a lot more blatant.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I liked but what I liked is how they kept how the priest dies, Father Brennan, in both movies is pretty similar, where he starts to get a sense that something terrible is going to happen, runs to a church, but then it spikes him like he's dead where he stands. Mm-hmm. Both times it looks brutal, but really cool.
Mm-hmm. It does. I think it actually worked a little bit better in the remake. They tightened it up a little bit so it doesn't feel like he's like standing there waiting for his death.
Yeah, he's not going, no.
Yeah.
What can you watch? No.
Yeah, it did feel like that in the original.
What movie had the line, it was an insult, you son of a motherless goat? I used to say that when I was younger, and I never
Monty
really.
Python and the Holy Grail.
That's what I thought.
It was Monty. It was Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So, do you think they took that from this movie?
Maybe.
Quite possibly. Yes.
Well, then where did they get an unladen the light velocity of an unladen sparrow?
Hey, we're isolating the Omen here. We can't do every line of Monty Python. We'll be here for weeks.
Your mother is a.
Your mother's a hamster and smells like elderberries. Yeah, I've seen that movie a few times.
Maybe your mother is a hamster. There was the take on your mother is a jackal.
Maybe, possibly.
You have to look and see when these movies happen, because this came out after. So yes, it could. So maybe they took it from
the other way around.
The other way around. Yeah, because
we got the skeletal goat in the grave of the mom, the actual birth mother. Because Damien is not the birth child of Catherine. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've established that.
No, we never did really mention that he is actually a traditional doppelganger.
Mm-hmm. Well, changeling.
Changeling, yes.
Yeah, they've taken this child of the goat and replaced it with their legitimate son, which when you see it's heartbreaking, especially in the remake, where you realize you see the skeleton of the baby that they would have had, and its head's been bashed in.
It's in the original too.
Is it?
Yeah.
It seems a little more clear to see in the remake.
People killed a newborn.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be priests.
But they're also evil. They're agents of Satan.
Because Father Brennan, who tries to warn Richard, he actually also has and he dies wonderfully with the spike through him. That's another thing with the Omen with the photographs with Jennings. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But Brendan's also got the 666 birthmark. So it's
That's
not
my
just
question.
Yeah, so
Well,
like so it's not just the
remake.
Okay, go for it.
There's a discussion where Thulis's character is reading the diary, and they explains that all the agents that are involved with the coming of the Antichrist have the mark.
Man, I wish they would have known that a lot earlier, because
Yeah.
that would have come in handy when they were hiring a new governess.
Yes.
Like, strip down.
Yep.
It's not what you think.
I know. He's like, no, my wife's going to look. I'm going to leave the other room.
Yeah.
But we're looking for this. If you get this birthmark, then it's a no-go.
And to me, I don't know. To me, the birthmark didn't make much sense. I would prefer if it had been a brand, like something that they'd done to themselves to be part of that situation.
Yeah, but because it does kind of suggest that they were born to be these agents, that they've not been given a choice as to whether or not they're going to be good or evil. But I like the fact that they wrote Brennan as somebody who's an agent who's still seeking redemption.
Yeah, I think it was he's near the end of his life. He realizes he's brought something and been part of something evil, bringing something evil into this world. So it would, Brennan would have had a great story in and of himself. And I don't know, maybe they did address that in one of the sequels. I have no idea, because I haven't seen any of them. But to see his build up to that movie and where he was in his life when he was intentionally doing these evil things, and I think facing his end with being riddled with cancer, he was trying to at least balance the scales so he might make that journey into heaven rather than hell. I think he feared what might be on the other end because he came from that.
But see,
Exactly.
this is the problem I have with sort of some of that stuff. Is if you've already stacked the deck that this is what's going to happen, you're evil, you're an agent of evil. Why does when anybody does matter? If it's so fated to be, it's meaningless.
Well, that's a fatalistic attitude. I think. It's clearly an act of desperation. He's clearly not a well man in this. He's trying to warn Robert in probably the weirdest ways, because the average person is not going to understand this crazy scripture you keep shouting at him.
It's true. It's very true.
So he's clearly not well.
But that's why I sort of went with the fact like a branding makes more sense, because if you're saying like you were just born to be this, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and
I mean, why care about anything?
It doesn't
matter.
Raise a lot of questions for sure.
It does, yeah. Yeah, they don't explain that very well, because you're right. As coming out as a birthmark suggests that they were. You're right. They've had no choice, no say in the matter, and
I mean all those people who brought Damien into the world and were part of this nefarious swap. How did they receive their reward? They burned to death.
Yes,
if they were lucky.
They were lucky.
But the other thing about it too is if they're aware of the mark of the beast, and like all Catholicism is really aware of it, and these priests went under the radar for this many decades. How? How?
Exactly.
Well, if your birthmark is under your hair like Damien's, nobody noticed.
It was on his inner thigh. So maybe
Brennan.
Maybe an altar boy or two might have known. But hey, we already established he was evil. That just means that probably happened.
There are degrees of evil.
Yeah, he helped smash in a newborn's head. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, we don't know if he was the one.
We don't know what his involvement was.
He just said he was there.
He knew he was there.
He was there at his birth,
and he let it happen.
I mean, he's complicit in the crime.
Yeah,
but what he did is we don't know. Allegedly.
Yeah, and I mean that's
allegedly on a fictional crime.
And that's what I'm about to say. I'm like, it's a fictional character. It's a fictional lawsuit. I'm protecting myself from fiction.
Yes. From a fictional corpse, no less.
Yes. Because he got skewered.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't change that. That was wonderful in both movies, except for the fact that it just looks cheesier in the second one.
But I somewhat like the instance where it was, in both movies, they mentioned that he was riddled with cancer, so he was like injecting morphine a lot. And so there's always that little kind of undercurrent where like he probably lost his mind a little bit. So like maybe we take it with a grain of salt.
Oh, we saw his apartment. He totally lost his mind.
Yes. Yeah, he totally did, yes.
But yeah, it kind of sort of gives that little bit where you're like, you're not terribly sure if it's really true yet.
If you're going to do a meeting in the park, wouldn't you keep it closer to your sanctuary?
Right?
You'd think.
And make sure the church is open?
Yes. Yeah, and which bothered me in both movies. Why was the church closed?
Yeah.
Especially especially in the 70s movie where the Catholic Church always has its doors open.
I thought that block came down out of nowhere. I don't know where it came from, but it was blocking that.
Well,
door.
they had that build-up of the storm after the meeting. It's like it feels like the world is angry, but it's something I actually kind of liked. They did more subtly in the remake, where the wind was already happening and things were already. It was already a bad weather day.
Yes.
You know, they met under the bridge and it was already raining and storming, so it feels more natural. Like Mother Nature isn't pissed at you for revealing the secrets.
Yes. Right. Well,
So that which is
right?
funny because I mean, it's rarely subtle in the remake, but that was actually one of those moments where they actually went with subtle.
Yeah, there's very few moments that are subtle in the remake. You're right.
Yeah.
I do like the graveyard scene better in the remake than I did in the original.
Yes.
It's tighter.
The
It's way
coldness,
tighter.
The iciness of it all.
Yeah, and I mean, it's obviously partly due to the advances in filmmaking since the original was made, but it just feels tighter, more real. Because it happens so much faster, it feels more tense. In the original, it's drawn out so much, you're like, oh, is this ever going to be over? Not, wow, that was really intense.
Oh, yeah. And then you have the dogs at the end. Man, those dogs were just everywhere.
Exactly. That's the part I'm referring to as well, is the scene with the dogs, is it doesn't feel as painfully drawn out.
I have at least a plausible explanation for the remake and the dog difference. Okay. Stay with me. There is a point in both films where Robert says, well, I will be the one to pick the dog, get rid of it, call the SPCA. So she did. And replaced it with another dog she didn't get permission for. That is my explanation. I'm going with that just to give the filmmakers an out. I'm going to do that to cover their asses for them.
So she bought another puppy from basically the same litter. That's a different dog.
No, they just found another one outside. Well, I'm sorry, evil dog. You're going to have to change into another evil dog.
Yes. Yeah, she didn't even really get rid of it. It just changed form.
Yeah. It's not the same dog, Robert.
You look at it. It's a different dog.
See? Yeah. I did what I was told.
I brought this one thinking you might like it.
Yeah. I thought you might like this one more.
Yeah.
Remember the whole choosing part? I'm going to run over you with my car now.
Yes.
Yeah, we trade in slobbering Cerberus, and now we've got Sprinkles.
Exactly, and that would have actually been very interesting if they had brought had changed the dog and it was less aggressive towards him, because they asked it to change its behavior, right, so that they wouldn't. He wouldn't know that it was the same dog. That would have been an interesting twist.
You're right.
It would have been.
Yeah.
They didn't really go out of their way to change anything. If anything, they went and the only changes they did were to underline things for you.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I want to talk about something that I really liked about the movie. I'm going to go jump right to the end because I love the fact that this movie does not have a traditional ending where it's all happy, he survives.
The original script ending had everybody in the family dying, including Damien. Yeah. But the producer realized, oh, you're right, somebody has to live. And the open ending gave him sequels.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So
it's
a pretty tragic ending for the protagonists of this film.
And that's horror always works a little bit better when the ending's not your happy out ending.
Oh, when it's a downer, it really affects you.
Yes, like I mean, for example, The Strangers is a great example of this type of thing does not always have a happy ending.
Yeah, this was a case of like you knew what to do to win, and you couldn't accomplish it.
Or the European ending to The Descent.
Yes,
she does not get out.
Yeah, and I won't say I love endings like that, but I really do enjoy it when they don't cop out.
No, and I always appreciate that as well. And I don't think it's handled as well in the remake.
I have to agree
because the cops, the assault team, just shows up out of nowhere.
Well, they've been following him, right?
The cops already called it in.
Yeah, they try to give a sense of time of this car chase.
I thought like everything seemed clear in the original as far as how that was paced.
Well, it did seem a little bit clearer in the original because it was a little bit longer, and the fact that it was just a regular cop that shot him made sense. But the problem is in the UK they don't
carry guns. That I made a note of that too,
Yeah.
and I'm like, gotta bring this up.
Yeah,
Yep.
So,
Can't do
so
that.
your standard Bobby doesn't carry a firearm.
Yeah.
No.
Right? So they try to fix that in the remake by making it an assault team where they would be issued weapons.
See, and I like the fact that I can't see the member's face who shot him, because that at the end of
They
it, I'm
showed
like
up
going,
awfully fast though.
They did show up awfully fast. You can't see his face. I just kept getting the feeling like, oh, just another agent just doing what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
Because I felt they were everywhere at that point.
That's
Well, and I think that is very plausible. Like, given that Brendan had a birthmark, and we've got Satan's governess kicking
Yeah.
around. So
yeah.
Oh, and I had
probably all sorts of people protecting Damien.
And they
had-
suggest that more in the remake that there are more agents.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they got to be everywhere,
And actually, that could have fixed the hospital scene where they killed Julia Stiles.
right?
Yeah.
That could have made it a lot more interesting where that nurse is an agent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It would have made far more sense.
I'll be much less irritated with her if she's an okay. She's an agent. I feel much less irritated now.
There we go. I fixed it for you, Trish.
Thank you.
I don't know why we have to fix it for the filmmakers, but okay.
That's two. That's two.
Yeah.
It's kind of what we do.
It's true. I had something, but now it's completely gone. Oh man.
Well, I have a couple things that
It was
while you're
well, it
thinking.
was part of the downer ending. Like when he's actually in there, and it's I don't know. Like again, you're saying like evil kids creep me out, and children in general kind of scare me. But even when we're at the point where he's got him on the ground, and he's like saying "Daddy, no," and I'm like, like yeah, I don't think I'd have the wherewithal to do that.
It's really well done to make you uncomfortable.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it works really, really well.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I figured out my thing. In both movies, they say, well, he'll kill that baby as it slumbers in the womb. Then he'll kill your wife. And then when he stands to inherit everything that you have, he'll kill you. Now, can't he just change his will? Part of the custody is he sends him to some poor part of the family somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and he has to stay there.
You know, and I didn't take it as inherit his stuff, but that's probably true as well. Like
if you send him away.
No, but at the end of the movie, he's with the president of the United States.
Yes.
He's taken his award of the president and his wife.
Thank you for the setup.
And that is his inheritance. That was something that you get the feeling that Robert is primed for at some point in his future.
Yeah,
in your
they do
will,
change it
you
in the sequel.
designate who you want your children to go to
Yes.
if you die.
Yeah, and you guys keep setting up something that I wanted to bring up.
Okay, go for it.
So apparently, everybody keeps saying that Gregory Peck was their first choice for this movie.
No.
He wasn't.
No,
William
he
Holden was.
Yes.
Who said he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to be involved with a movie with involving Satan. But he plays Robert's brother in the fucking sequel.
Well, he saw how successful it
Yes.
was.
He's like, I'm going to jump on that.
There was another actor. Oh, and I'm blanking on who it was now. Not known for these type of movies. More of a comedic actor at the time, and throughout. Who was Matlock?
Oh, yes, I know who it is.
Andy Griffith.
Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
I think it was Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. This person whose name I can't remember, but probably Andy Griffith.
Andy Griffith.
Said turning down this movie was the worst mistake of my career.
I think he would have been good in it. I would have, but I would have want Ron Howard to be Damien. That would have made it better.
There was another director who was attached to it as well that had left the project and also said, like, you know, this was probably the worst mistake of not taking this film.
Yeah, because you look at what Richard Donner went on to do.
Yeah, because this movie, like, he was primarily a TV guy, and he saw the script, liked the script, and went out and made this thing happen, and that got him Superman 2 years later because the Salkinds had seen The Omen and brought him on board, and then Superman was a success, and next thing you know, you've got the Goonies and Lethal Weapon franchise. He went on to a lot of big things.
And just got better every time.
Yeah, and hey,
He has improved.
We've talked about him before. Come on, guys, come on. What was it?
Oh God.
Well,
I
actually,
feel so
no.
bad with these.
Well, you weren't here yet, I don't think, Sam. Episode 39, come on.
39. You expect me to remember that many episodes ago?
Okay, we talked about Richard Donner previously in
Give me a hint. See if I can get
remaking
it.
Lady Hawk. I'm not going to play this game.
Yes, I was here. That was one of my second. That was, I think, it was my
It was
second.
really
episode.
early for you.
Actually, okay, then that makes sense because remember the priest in the original? That's the old priest in Lady Hawk. I wrote that down because I'm like, oh yeah, that guy.
And we briefly talked about another one of his movies in one of our Christmas specials when we talked about all the Scrooge stuff.
Yeah.
And he directed Scrooge. So, Richard Donner's made a few appearances on the show.
Yes, he has, yeah.
But the fact that he hasn't made super large amount of appearances tells you what you should know about Richard Donner. He's not too bad.
Yeah. There's not a lot of stuff I want to touch. Like, are we going to remake Goonies? Fuck no.
No.
We're not going to touch that. I know you probably want us to see us do it, but that would break our rule of trying to remake good movies. And the few times we have, we've failed miserably. So
It's too hard.
Yeah, it's been tough discussions.
We made them, in some instances, worse.
Yeah, well, that's really
it.
the only way you can do it at that point.
We failed down.
Yeah, and at least if you're going to do it, fail spectacularly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were some where we didn't know how good they were until it was too late.
Yeah, well, that was what it was.
Yes.
Actually, you know what? The Omen, I just made a thought here that the Omen probably wouldn't exist without Night of the Demon, which Michael Gambon was in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Connective tissue always.
Oh, wow.
At least one of the movies, because that was another case of where weird demonic thing was killing off the protagonists within the film.
Yep.
Yeah. Evil everywhere.
Evil everywhere.
We hit a lot of notes with these horror movies sometimes because there's so many. People always complain there's no original horror, but there is if you look hard enough.
Yeah.
At the very
Oh
least,
God! I mean, you don't even have to look far these days. There's so much good stuff coming out right now with unique visions that, geez, we haven't seen this kind of original content probably since the 70s.
Yeah.
80s was pretty much slasher movies and everybody ripping off each other.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, with the success of this new batch of filmmakers, you're inevitably going to get that again. But
like always, just like when we saw the J horror, the Americanization of the J horror movies sort of peaked fairly quickly, fortunately, and now you don't really see it so much.
Yeah, well, and
Comes
PG
in
horror
cycles.
was prevalent for probably the last 15, 20 years, so it's kind of nice to see, like, hey, we can embrace the R movies and they'll do fine.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, because the people who should be watching this type of stuff are adults.
Very true. They're supposed to be.
Yes.
It's crazy creepy.
All right, well, we're probably near the end here, but you guys got any final thoughts about the Omen that you want to bring up here?
I do. There was, in both movies, she mentions that she doesn't want to have another child. And the topic of abortion is raised.
Yeah, and that's because, her current one's trying to kill her. And
Yes.
she's unaware that this is... I mean, Robert's very aware that the kid has been swapped out. He thought his kid had died in childbirth.
Well, and he was told she could never have any other children.
Yeah.
But yeah, in both instances, they're like going, well, we want you to think that it's okay that she gets one. Like, it's sort of like they ask him for permission. And I kept thinking in both instances, I'm like going, A, let her have it if she wants it, and B, send it to boarding school. Because then what's he going to do? She's at home. Plus, she's not in the hospital and really fucked up, so she can't defend herself. Give her an abortion, send her home so she can defend herself, then send your kid away. Just do it. And then she
England. Boarding
survives this
school's
movie.
a big deal.
It was
Boarding
very big
school
deal.
at 5, you could totally do it.
That's an English thing.
Yes, very much. And I think
And even in Italy, you could do it. Probably.
yeah. Now Damien's only 4 in the original as well.
No, he's 5.
He's 5. He's just that's right. He's just turned 5. That's right.
Yeah, that was his birthday
His
party.
birthday was the 5th birthday. That's right.
Yep, he's 5'5".
Yeah, he doesn't look 5 in the original.
No, he does to me.
He looks 6 to me, if anything.
Oh,
he
yeah.
looks older.
Yeah, exactly. That year.
He does not look younger.
Yeah. I thought he looked younger in the original than he does in the remake.
He's 6, but he can play 5.
Like some of these kids that get really old, and you're like, can he pass for 5? Oh, we don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. He just seems smaller to me.
But I also, one more thing. I like a fall movie. I just like it when they're like kind of bundled up in coats and they're going out and the leaves are down. Just saying it. It's nice.
It's good to build mood. I think there's something about
the blowing leaves.
Yeah, the leaving of life from the world kind of brings something to it.
Actually, and bringing up fall reminded me of one more thing that I wanted to talk about. Fall, specifically falling. In the original, Lee Remick falls to her death into the ambulance, which is clearly supernatural.
Yes.
Right? But in the remake, her death is physical. She's actually murdered, right? Which kind of swaps your argument between the first and the second movies, or the original and the remake. Because for all of the original, you've kind of got that doubt about whether or not it's actually supernatural, except for that one scene where she clearly is being controlled and falls
Yeah,
to
because
death.
I mean, yeah.
Really? I thought Mrs. Blaylock tossed her out the window.
Well, yeah, no, that's what I thought too. Like, it
'Cause she
still
shows
feels
up
like a
there.
blatant murder, but I liked the thought, or what they did in the remake, not the thought, is Baylock just throws the air bubble into her.
And there's the struggle and the terror on her face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you're right. Miss Blaylock shows up and she falls to her death because she's trying to get away from Blaylock. She doesn't get
Yeah.
pushed. She backs out and
You keep
falls.
saying
herself.
But yeah, in both
Baylock,
instances, like she's messed up enough where it'd be hard to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Like watching poor Julia Stiles, where she's just there's no way out.
Yeah, and I love the where they give a close up on her hand and her trying to move her hand to try and save herself. A beautifully shot scene. Probably one of the more powerful scenes in the whole movie, actually.
Like, and then you see it just go up in between her knuckles, and you know it's in there,
Yep.
and there's nothing she can do.
Yep. I'm glad that you mentioned falling because
Welcome.
I'd forgotten that I wanted to mention that.
But that's a brilliant shot, though, when she falls through the ambulance and the doors open, and then you see her. I just love the way that looks.
Yeah. Yeah, both movies were beautifully shot. Like the visuals on both movies are excellent.
Yeah, there's this use of red in the remake that is something that M. Night Shyamalan would always use to represent something supernatural happening, and they were basically stealing it.
Yeah.
in this remake, but
Borrowing
it's-
generously.
It's subtle. Honestly, I had to read about it because I didn't actually pick up on it while I was watching it.
Well, when I saw the dream sequence, it's sort of I knew right then I was watching a dream sequence because of her red robe.
Yeah,
That seemed everything was too white, and her robe was just a little too red.
yeah. There were things that stand out. Yeah, when they're the monochromaticness of it. You know, it's like it's red.
Yes.
Red. All right. Well, I think that's the Omen in our creepy kids for today.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this is our second entry into all the horror for October. Look for that hashtag on Twitter to follow all the shows that are involved in all the horror, and follow at all the horror 18 on Twitter to see when those episodes are posting from the other podcasts.
There'll be updates every day.
Every day.
It's going to be a big full month for October, so
Yeah, and we are also doing our 31 Days of Horror challenge again. If you don't know what that is, go check out some of our previous iterations of that. This will be our third time
This is our third year. Yeah.
for you guys. And what happens in 31 Days of Horror is each day of October, we watch a horror movie we've never seen before.
Woohoo.
And that'll culminate into 2 special episodes. At least 2, because
We
we've
went
learned
from 1 to 2 last year. So
yeah, we've learned that you can't talk about it all in one episode. It's really
93 freaking movies.
hard. 93.
it's a lot.
Yeah, in fact, I watched 32 last year, so I got an
Yeah.
extra one in there last year.
I think Trish did too as well.
Yeah,
didn't you?
I did special credit because one wasn't really working for me.
Now, if Jeff can do it, Jeff 3, for all our old listeners, may be joining us for that episode if he can pull it off. So
If he can pull it
he's-
off, yeah,
he's
that-
got his list. He wants to do it.
It's a commitment. It really is. Right? But you know what? If I could do it the first year we did it, when I was in the
Yeah.
process of moving,
Yes.
That's right. You did.
You
I still did
and
it.
You were done early and moved.
yes,
And that's impressive.
yeah, I managed to pull it off, and that was packing, moving. Yeah, it was and doing renovations. I was
Yes.
doing renovations too. So if I can do it, then Jeff 3 can do it.
Yeah.
No excuses, Jeff 3.
So we may have an extra voice in there, which like, oh Jesus, I can barely get us into 2 hours an episode as it is with the 3 of us. So could be a 3-part, or they could just be really long episodes.
We'll see what we need to do to make it happen.
Yeah, you might get a big blockbuster 2.5 hour epic for 2 weeks in a row in November. Who knows?
Something to
figure
keep
it
you
out.
warm while it's
We'll
cold.
see how it fits.
Exactly. So yeah, make sure you follow at all the horror 18 and hashtag all the horror on Twitter to check out all the stuff that's coming up. You can follow us at Invasion Remake on Twitter, Invasion of the Remake on Facebook and Instagram, and invasionoftheremake@gmail.com if you want to email us your comments, your questions, your corrections, and your fan challenges as well. It's been a while since we had a good fan challenge, so if you got any ideas of things you want us to remake, let us know, and you can do it in all of those places. And if we like your idea, we will do it on the show and give you credit, and we'll probably also badmouth you a little bit too, because you're making us work. And
we just do that.
We do that. It's, you know, you got to take the shellacking along with the good, right?
If it's your challenge, this is just what happens.
You got to be prepared to take the heat.
You got to take the heat for making me watch that shit.
But it's all good-natured.
Yeah.
And it absolutely all good-natured. So,
and who knows, one of these days we won't get one that's not just bad, but we'll get one that's maybe it goes so bad it's good, and it might be just a joyful experience for all of us.
Paint Your Wagon was.
Yeah, Paint Your Wagon was. Meet the Feebles was lots of fun.
Oh, I forgot Paint Your Wagon was a challenge.
I didn't even say Hard Rock Zombies turned out pretty good.
At the end, yes, but the watching of it was very
that was
hard.
painful. I'm glad we did it as a group. 'Cause
Yes.
then we could just heckle the shit out of
Yes.
it. Watching it separately would have been far worse.
I wouldn't have made it through. I would not have made it through.
There would have been crying for me.
Yeah, Jay would have gotten a text going, "Fuck this, I'm not doing it."
Because I remember when we looked, it was like, how much time is left? We're only 20 minutes in. I almost lost it.
Yeah, it was tough. And it was like an 87-minute film. It felt twice as long.
It felt like it was 3 days.
It felt like a mini series of awfulness.
There's so much happening in it, though. That's why it does feel like a miniseries. All right, well, help us out and leave us a 5-star rating and a short review on the podcast app that you were listening to us on, especially iTunes. That helps us out a lot. And if you want to subscribe, just go, "Hey Siri, subscribe me to the Invasion of the Remake podcast," and you're done. Should be in your feed. But if you're not, if you're not using an iProduct, then hit us up. Of course, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play Music, TuneIn Radio, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, and
frickin' YouTube.
Yeah, and Libsyn's in there as well. Frickin' YouTube. You can hit us there as well. Not the best place for us, but we're there. We're there if you want to look at a static image and listen to us for an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Well, you know what? If you're making dinner, turn us on.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, you're cooking. We're great cooking.
That's when I listen to all of our other podcast friends, is largely in the car or while I'm making dinner.
There you go.
It harkens back to one of my favorite shows I used to watch was Dinner and a Movie. I liked watching that.
Yeah, my podcast, usually I'm on the way to work, or actually I oftentimes will listen to podcasts when I'm setting up the equipment before this show.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it.
It is.
That's Evil Children. That's a thing.
It's the thing.
No.
Sorry, Trish.
Yeah.
I know,
Not
but that's
Trish's
okay.
favorite thing.
What's worse, spiders or evil children?
Evil Children.
Oh, see, I should have started with that.
Secrets revealed.
Secrets revealed. I'm like,
A spider, I can kind of understand, and I can know how to deal with a spider. Evil child, I got nothing.
yeah, they didn't make shoes that big.
No,
They don't.
no, they don't. And people frown on you squashing a child.
So I'm told.
Yeah.
I'm told. They said, Jade, don't squish children. I'm like, okay, I won't.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't on my list of things to do anyhow.
No, it wasn't, but, they put the idea in your head. Well, you're telling me not to, but maybe I should. Maybe I should find out. But I'm not going to. I'm not going to.
I mean, like, some people, they're fine if you, like, almost squish them, like, by hugging them. But, like, you can't go full Lenny of Mice and Men with a tiny child.
No.
No.
All right, well, when you're having children, check for birthmarks. Mm-hmm. Make sure it's not the 6th. I don't care what you got to do if it's the 6th of June at 6 p.m.
Or 6 a.m.
or 6 a.m.
Okay,
Just hold it in. Hold it in.
There's very little you can do. Here's what you do. You make sure that you have that C-section booked for before then. Get that sucker out.
24 hours before. Yep.
Or, and if the other child has been brought up as trying to kill you because you already have another kid in there, and you're kind of thinking, yeah, I could have an abortion, just do that.
Yeah.
Nobody should stop you from that.
Yeah, and stay away from names like Damien and Lucifer. Mm-hmm. That's kind of asking for it.
Beelzebub.
It really is.
Yeah. You just stay away from those demon names. I think you'll be okay.
It's a good place to start for sure.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about the choice of name, did we?
I don't know.
Oh, originally it was supposed to be Dolman or something. Something very Irish sounding.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, oh, Damien's good.
I don't know. As you grow up, you can just, think of all the names of the evil kids you knew, like a Chet or
Well,
Chad.
well, think about it. 70s,
Don't name them.
Damien wasn't associated with evil.
That's
it was
true.
just a name.
No.
Yeah.
Now, because of this movie, Damien is.
I knew a Damon. That's close enough.
There we go.
There
But
you
he
go.
was really nice, so I don't know.
Well, it's Damon.
It's Damon, not Damien.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Damon Lyons.
There you go.
There you go.
Ooh,
Very
different guy.
Funny man.
Very funny man.
Damon Wayans Jr., also very funny.
There you go. All right, well, that's it. We're for Damien and the Omen. Go check out all of its sequels if you want. And the TV series called Damien, which I didn't know existed until this show.
Yeah, I have so many questions.
I've been Jason.
I am always Sam.
I continue to be Trish.
And we are out of here.
When the Jews return to Zion, and a comet rips the sky, the Holy Roman Empire rises, then you and I must die. From the eternal sea he rises, creating armies on either shore, turning man against his brother, till man exists no more. The book of Revelations predicted it all.
I'm not here to listen to a sermon.
It is by means of a human personality entirely in his possession that Satan will wage his last formidable offense.
You said that my
Go
wife
to
was...
the town of Megiddo, in the old city of Jezreel. There see the old man Bugenhagen. He alone can describe how the child must die.
Look here.
He who will not be saved by the lamb will be torn by the beast.
Will you stop? I'm here because you said my wife is in danger.
She is pregnant.
You're mistaken. That's nonsense.
He will not allow the child to be born. He will kill it while it slumbers in the womb.
What in God's name are you talking about?
Your son, Mr. Thorne. The son of the devil. He will kill the unborn child. Then he will kill your wife. And when he is certain to inherit all that is yours, then, Mr. Thorne, he will kill you.
That's enough.
And with your wealth and power, he will establish his counterfeit kingdom here on Earth, receiving his power directly from Satan.
You're insane.
He must die, Mr. Thorne!
You asked for 5 minutes, and you've got 5 minutes.
Go to the city of Megiddo. See Bugenhagen before it's too late.
Now, I've heard you. I want you to hear me. I never want to see you again.